Thanks, Chrissy, and thanks to Vertical Events for the opportunity to present. I did spend a bit of time on the dark side, and that's not underground mining. That is the finance industry, and it was a great experience, and I suppose gave me a good understanding of capital markets, and had a look at a lot of projects over the years, and this one that we've grabbed in Vietnam is probably one of the best I've seen. So really looking forward to sort of talking about that today, and showing you how that as Blackstone we're positioned to meet the demand from Asia's growing lithium-ion battery industry. So we've got a portfolio of assets. As any junior, you sort of have to have a couple up in the back pocket, but at the moment our focus is the flagship, which is the Ta Koi nickel project in northern Vietnam. We have the BC Cobalt Belt, which we had some very good success on, and unfortunately the cobalt price went against us there, and we're still really excited about that asset, and we think cobalt is a great commodity for the battery industry, but unfortunately not an asset that we're sort of progressing at the moment. We've also got some great gold and nickel sulfide in Western Australia as well, but today we'll focus on nickel sulfide in Vietnam. So the Ta Koi nickel project, it was operating between 2013 and 2016. They mined 1 million tonnes at very high grade nickel and copper, and they've built a great piece of infrastructure. This is a concentrator, 450,000 tonne per annum. So over $130 million of capital has been spent on the infrastructure at this mine, and it's been built to an Australian standard, and it's been kept in very good order and ready to turn on again. Most importantly, it generated some significant revenue, and the taxes were paid to the government. So over $65 million went back to the government, and that was mainly through a tariff on concentrate, which we believe that we can reduce or remove through going to a downstream process. There's a snapshot of the other projects. So we've got some great cobalt ground. We think we've got a potential cobalt belt over in British Columbia. We've got 48 kilometres of a particular type of geology that is similar to the Bouazir mine in Morocco, which they've actually been mining cobalt for 75 years, and that's the only primary cobalt mine in the world today, and we believe we have the same geology in British Columbia. And some great nickel and gold assets in Western Australia, where it all started for Blackstone and myself. There's a bit of a corporate snapshot. We're just nearing on 3 years as a company, and we've been able to keep our capital structure fairly tight. So we've got less than 200 million shares on issue. Unfortunately, the share price got a bit of a whack this morning due to the nickel price, so the shares are a little bit cheaper than that today, which is great, and we're well funded. So we've got $5 million in the bank, and that allows us to really progress this Ta Koi nickel project over the coming 6 to 12 months. So you can see once we acquired the asset, the market has appreciated that, and it's been well seen in the share price over the last 6 months. Board and management, very strong position of 20%, and we have a very supportive shareholder in Deutsche Balaton out of Germany. So when you're investing in small juniors, it's very important to understand the board and management team. So this is a team that's worked together for 20 years, all across the world, all continents, all commodities, but most importantly, they've made major discoveries and created corporate success and created shareholder wealth for shareholders. Steve Parsons and Hamish Halliday are the duo. I've got them both on my board, and they've been amazing, and I've learned a lot from them. And Steve's recent success has been a company called Bellevue Gold Limited. It's probably one of the most exciting gold discoveries in the last 12 to 18 months. So they've found 2 million ounces at plus 10 grams per tonne gold. So that's been a great discovery and a really good success in some of the toughest capital markets we've seen in a long time. Dr. Stuart Owen, he's the unsung hero that makes us all look good. He's the one that finds the ore bodies and makes the discoveries, and he's done that for the last 20 years for this team. So he's the one that sort of really makes us look good up here. Okay, so we're near Hanoi. We're 6 hours out of Hanoi. This is probably one of the best manufacturing jurisdictions in the world right now. So a lot of big factories just in Hanoi that have come out of China, and we've got some of the lowest labour costs in the world. We've got hydro grid power. We've got a concentrator that's ready to go, a 250-person camp. So this is a great asset that we can really leverage off and then move towards restarting the mine. We've got a very supportive local partner who owns 10% of the asset, and he's been a great supporter of this asset over the last 10 to 20 years as well. And a really important part of doing business in Asia is having that supportive local partner that can really connect you into the government. So this is a bit of a snapshot of the geology. So we're talking about a major rift zone that comes through into China. And as you get to the border, there's nickel mines all through this belt. We believe that there's potential for significant nickel mines all through the Vietnam part of this belt. It just hasn't been systematically explored. So it was discovered in the 1960s, and it wasn't until the 1996 where the first modern exploration occurred. And through that period, there wasn't much exploration outside of the main ore body, being the Ban Phuc ore body. So this is a magmatic nickel sulfide system similar to the large deposits at Norilsk in Russia and Jinchuan in China. So we're talking about some of the largest nickel mines in the world, and we have this exact same tectonic setting and age dating as those large mines. Here's a snapshot of some of the infrastructure. So this is an internationally designed processing facility built to an Australian standard and operated to an Australian standard also. We believe that this processing facility can be turned on very quickly. You can see the portal there, so that's an underground mine, so we've got a very large, modern, mechanised underground mine with 2 portals, and significant tonnage can be pulled from that underground. We'll upgrade this mill. We think we need to increase the tonnage throughput because we're focusing on a larger ore body, and we believe that this mine has a long mine life through disseminated sulfides. We've got an internationally certified laboratory on site. We have a Knight Piésold designed tailings facility, permitted and ready to go. We've got all the stores, critical spares in the store ready to go. We can turn this mine on tomorrow. This is a bit of a snapshot of the operating costs when the Ban Phuc mine operated. So we're talking about 25% lower operating costs than an equivalent mine in Australia, and that's with the tariff. So if we can reduce or remove that tariff, these costs will improve significantly. You can see that the tariff line is actually, they spent more on tariff than actually mining, so that's a significant reduction if we can remove that tariff through downstream processing. This is the nickel price over the last 10 years. What we're showing here is that the Ban Phuc mine and any nickel sulfide mine should work in any nickel price environment. This is why you invest in nickel sulfides. So the costs being the lines below the nickel price, and unfortunately the nickel price went against them. They closed at around some of the lowest nickel prices in the last 10 years. And the reason they closed it because there wasn't any exploration done during that period. So they got to the bottom of the Ban Phuc mine and didn't do any further exploration. There's an established mining industry in Vietnam. A lot of people don't realise there's over 20 open cut mines and over 20 underground mines. There's an established mining law. The Ban Phuc nickel mine is in the mining master plan, and it's been recognised as a project of national significance, which will improve the permitting going forward. So this is the belt. We have a large ground position. We have exclusivity to over 150 kilometres squared. There's 25 massive sulfide veins outcropping. So we have veins running for 2 kilometres outcropping, never been drilled within hundreds of metres of a concentrator. You will never see this anywhere in Australia. There is ore sticking out of the ground ready to be drilled. These are some of the trenching numbers from those different massive sulphide veins. So the veins are fairly narrow, but also very high grade. So we've got some very good nickel, copper, cobalt, platinum and palladium numbers through these massive sulphide veins. We're, as a Blackstone, is more interested at the moment in the disseminated zones because they're going to give us the longevity and the long mine life that's required to supply the lithium-ion battery industry. So you can see here that the Banfulk mine, they mined out the massive sulphide vein and they've left behind a 1.5 kilometre by 500 metre large disseminated ore system, and that is the focus of our current drilling program. This is a cross-section, so you can see the mine went down to about 400 metres depth. No further exploration at depth, and they've left behind this very large disseminated sulphide system. So we're hitting very good intercepts of around 1% nickel. A lot of people don't realise, but 1% nickel is equivalent to plus 3 grams per tonne gold, and we're hitting these from open pitable type depths. This is an interesting one. The previous owners didn't actually assay for platinum and palladium, and we're seeing up to 1 gram per tonne platinum plus palladium and gold. This is a significant game changer for Blackstone. We believe that there's a potential byproduct credit that could cover a lot of those operating costs in a potential open pit scenario. We're using a number of different geophysical techniques. This one's magnetic, so you can see the Banfulk intrusion, which we're currently drilling. There's a number of mag anomalies nearby that we need to test for further disseminated sulphide. This is the first ever IP survey that's been done at this mine, and very quickly we've uncovered some very high chargeability zones which could indicate disseminated or massive sulphide. So we're using as many modern geophysical techniques as we can, and looking at making new discoveries. So the Banfulk intrusion is this ore body which we're currently drilling, and there's a number of targets that we'll test over the coming 6 months. This is a really key part of our strategy, is to remove or reduce the tariff. We need to go to a downstream process. This works well for us because we're on the doorstep of the lithium-ion industry. So the major players in the lithium-ion battery industry being China, Japan and South Korea. We are right on their doorstep. By going downstream, we can reduce or remove the tariff. So previous owners have already looked into reducing the tariff, and they were able to reduce it from 20 to 5% on an intermediate product being a nickel matte. This was before the lithium-ion industry was established, and we believe that through downstream processing we can potentially deliver a nickel sulphate straight into the battery end users. This is a flow sheet that we grabbed from Independence Group. This is very similar to the flow sheet we're currently considering. So we're talking about a pressure oxidation process, an autoclave. This is a process that's used all throughout the mining industry. It's a tried and tested technology, particularly in refractory gold. So this is the flow sheet to produce a nickel sulphate for the battery industry. So where to next for Blackstone and the Tarkwa nickel project? So we're cashed up. Over about $5 million allows us to drill out the Banfulk disseminated ore body over the next 6 months. That will lead to a maiden resource, and through that maiden resource we can deliver a scoping study which will look into the downstream processing opportunities in Vietnam. Through that process we'll also look at potentially upgrading the concentrator. So over the next 6 to 12 months, consistent news flow. We have 2 rigs on the ground now. We're adding another 2 rigs within the next week. We'll have 4 rigs spinning. We'll have very consistent news flow over the next 6 months as we drill out that Banfulk ore body. Also, at the same time, we'll be using these modern geophysical techniques to make new discoveries as well as the drill out phase of that Banfulk ore body. We've made it very clear that we're seeking strategic partners, particularly focused on battery end users in Asia, and we've spent a lot of time with cathode and battery makers, and we believe that there's a potential funding opportunity through partnerships with the battery end users on this downstream processing facility. In summary, so we have an international portfolio of battery and precious metals. Our particular focus at the moment is on nickel sulphide in Vietnam and the Tarkwai Nickel project. This was a great little mine operated by an Australian team in a TSX-listed entity. We believe that we can restart this mine, we can go to a downstream process and potentially deliver nickel sulphate into the battery industry for the next 10 to 20 years. We'll also continue to progress our other assets, being the BC Cobalt project and the nickel sulphide and gold in Western Australia. We still really believe in the cobalt story, but unfortunately at the moment the nickel is where we're sort of focused. Most importantly, we've got a team that's done this all before. We've done it over the last 20 years. We've made major discoveries. We've taken $5 million companies, turned them into multi-$100 million companies, and then there's a history of creating wealth for shareholders and through corporate success and major discoveries. And we think that Blackstone has the potential to do that all over again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Scott. Spot on. Well